They said her scars would end her dreams. She proved them dead wrong. This is the story of the Marine they tried to break.
When the IED exploded and her brothers fell, the Marine they doubted became the hero they needed. This changed everything.
The Texas sun beat down mercilessly on the Marine recruitment office parking lot. Emma Rodriguez sat in her beat-up Honda Civic for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to build up courage for what came next. She was 21 years old. Most of her high school friends were finishing college, posting Instagram photos from spring break trips and sorority parties. Emma had taken a different path. The accident happened during her sophomore year at community college. She'd been working the late shift at a chemical plant to pay tuition when a storage tank ruptured. The foreman had ignored safety protocols, cut corners to save money, and Emma paid the price. The explosion threw her 15 feet across the concrete floor. Chemical burns covered the left side of her face, her neck, and most of her left arm. 3 surgeries later, the doctors told her she was lucky to be alive. The scars would be permanent. Her boyfriend at the time couldn't handle it. He stopped returning her calls after the second surgery. Her so-called friends gradually drifted away, their excuses getting thinner each time. Emma spent a year in her apartment, ordering groceries online, avoiding mirrors, and wondering if her life was essentially over at 20. Then something changed. She was watching television at 2 in the morning, unable to sleep like most nights, when a Marine Corps commercial came on. It showed men and women in uniform, standing tall, facing impossible odds. The tagline hit her like a punch to the gut. The few, the proud. Emma realized she'd been waiting for permission to live again. Permission that was never going to come from the people who'd abandoned her. She needed to give it to herself. Now here she was, about to walk into that recruitment office. The recruiter was a woman in her mid-30s, Staff Sergeant Chun, with a combat action ribbon on her uniform and eyes that had seen real violence. She glanced up when Emma entered, and to her credit, her expression didn't change when she saw the scars. "What can I do for you?" Chun asked. "I want to be a Marine," Emma said, voice steadier than she felt. Chun studied her for a long moment. Why? It was a simple question that demanded an honest answer. Emma could have given a dozen patriotic reasons, talked about service and honor, and defending freedom. Instead, she told the truth. "Because I need to prove something to myself, that I'm more than what happened to me." Chun nodded slowly. "That's the best reason I've heard in months. But I need to be straight with you. This isn't therapy. Boot camp will be the hardest thing you've ever done. Drill instructors will get in your face and scream things that'll make you question everything about yourself. You ready for that?" "I've already been through hell," Emma said. "At least this time I'll have a purpose." 3 months later, Emma stood on the yellow footprints at Paris Island, South Carolina. The bus had arrived after midnight, and within seconds, drill instructors were screaming at the new recruits, ordering them to stand on painted footprints while their civilian lives were systematically stripped away. Senior drill instructor Vasquez was a compact woman who moved like a predator. When she reached Emma during the initial inspection, she stopped. "What happened to your face, recruit?" "Chemical burn, ma'am." "Industrial accident, ma'am." Vasquez leaned in close, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried more menace than screaming. "You think those scars make you special? You think I'm going to go easy on you? No, ma'am, you're right. I'm going to push you harder than anyone else here. You know why?" "No, ma'am. Because when you graduate from my battalion, nobody's going to question whether you earned it. Now get moving." Boot camp was everything Chun had promised and worse. The physical training pushed Emma to her absolute limit. The mental games, the drill instructors played broke down every recruit's sense of identity, rebuilding them into something harder. But the worst part was her fellow recruits. During the first week, she overheard whispered conversations in the barracks after lights out. Some girls were placing bets on how long Scarface would last. Others worried she'd slow down their platoon, get them all punished because she couldn't keep up. Emma said nothing. She just worked harder. By the end of week 3, she was running faster than 70% of the platoon. Her marksmanship scores were near perfect when they did the combat endurance test, carrying weighted packs over miles of sand and obstacles. Emma finished in the top 15. The whispers changed. Some recruits started asking her for tips on shooting technique. Others wanted to know her workout routine. But not everyone came around. Recruit Taylor, a former college athlete with the build of a fitness model, seemed to take Emma's existence as a personal insult. She made comments just loud enough for Emma to hear, questioning how someone damaged could be a real Marine. The confrontation came during martial arts training. Recruits were partnered up for ground fighting drills. Emma found herself matched against Taylor. "Try not to let your face get any worse," Taylor said with a smirk. The drill instructor heard it. "Recruit Taylor, you got something to say?" "No, sir. That's what I thought. Now both of you, give me proper intensity or you'll be doing burpees until you puke." The drill began. Emma had never been a great fighter, but she'd learned something valuable from her accident. Pain was temporary, and fear was just another obstacle to push through. Taylor came at her aggressively, trying to establish dominance. Emma absorbed the impact, used Taylor's momentum against her, and executed a perfect reversal that left the bigger woman flat on her back, Emma's forearm across her throat. "Excellent work, Rodriguez," the drill instructor barked. "That's how you use technique over strength. Reset and go again." They went 5 more rounds. Emma won 3 of them. Taylor never made another comment about her appearance. The crucible, the final test of boot camp, was 54 hours of continuous physical and mental challenges, with minimal food and sleep. Every recruit would be pushed beyond what they thought possible. Emma's moment came during a night navigation exercise. Her fire team had to locate specific coordinates in dense woods while carrying full combat loads. They'd been awake for 36 hours straight. One of her teammates, Recruit Park, collapsed from heat exhaustion. The drill instructors watched but didn't intervene. This was the test. Would the fire team abandon Park to complete the mission, or would they find a way to do both? Emma made the call. "Williams, take point. Garcia, you're on navigation. I've got Park." She hoisted the semi-conscious recruit onto her shoulders in a fireman's carry and started walking. Every step was agony. The additional weight made her injured arm scream with pain. But she kept moving. 3 hours later, they reached the checkpoint. Emma set Park down gently, then immediately vomited from exhaustion. A drill instructor approached, canteen in hand. "Drink this, Rodriguez. That's what right looks like. You never leave a Marine behind." Graduation day arrived. Emma's mother sat in the stands, crying as she watched her daughter march in formation with the other Marines. Emma had invited her father, but he'd declined. He still couldn't look at her scars without flinching. When Emma received her Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, officially becoming a United States Marine, she felt something she hadn't experienced since before the accident: pride. Her first duty station was Camp Pendleton, assigned to a logistics unit. The work was important, but not what Emma wanted. She'd proven she could handle combat-level training. She wanted to serve where it mattered most. The opportunity came 6 months later. The Marine Corps was conducting a pilot program, integrating more women into combat roles. Emma volunteered immediately. The training was brutally honest about what she'd face. The instructors didn't sugarcoat the physical demands or the resistance she'd encounter from some male Marines who still believed women didn't belong in combat. "Some of you won't make it," the lead instructor told the volunteers on day 1. "Not because you're not tough enough, but because you'll get tired of fighting for respect every single day." This program isn't just about physical standards. It's about mental endurance. Emma looked around at the other women. They all had determination in their eyes, but she wondered how many had already faced the kind of rejection she'd experienced. How many had already developed the thick skin necessary to survive not just combat, but the judgment of their peers? The dropout rate was 40%. Emma wasn't among them. Her performance during the infantry officer course qualification earned her a spot in 1st Battalion, 8th Marines. She'd be deploying to Afghanistan and for months. The news was delivered by her new commanding officer, Captain Morrison, a veteran of 3 combat deployments with a Navy Cross for Valor. "I'm not going to lie to you, Rodriguez," Morrison said during their first meeting. "You're going to face resistance in the unit. Some Marines have outdated views about women in combat. But here's what matters. Can you do the job? Yes, sir. Then prove it every single day. Don't give anyone ammunition to question your presence. And Rodriguez, those scars aren't a weakness. They're proof you've already survived hell. Use that. Bravo Company, 1st Platoon, was her new home. The reaction to her arrival was exactly what she'd expected. Awkward silence, quick glances at her scars, and whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room. The platoon sergeant, a barrel-chested lifer named Sergeant First Class Kowalski, gathered the platoon for her introduction. This is Corporal Rodriguez. She's a Marine. She's qualified, and she's part of this platoon now. Anyone got a problem with that? You can bring it to me privately, and I'll explain why you're wrong. Understood? Yes, Sergeant, came the unified response. But understanding orders and accepting reality were different things. During her first training exercise with the platoon, Emma was assigned to a 4-man fire team. One member, Lance Corporal Briggs, made his feelings clear. No offense, but you're going to get us killed, he said. Combat isn't a place for political correctness. Emma had learned not to argue with words. Let's run the drill. Then you can judge. The exercise was a simulated building clearance. Teams entering a hostile structure under time pressure. Emma took point, clearing corners with textbook precision, communicating clearly with her team, and identifying threats faster than anyone expected. When it was over, Briggs said nothing, but his silence spoke volumes. The platoon deployed to forward, operating Base Shank in Afghanistan's Logar province. The landscape was harsh and beautiful, mountains rising like jagged teeth against impossibly blue skies. Taliban forces controlled large sections of the surrounding territory. Emma's first patrol was a presence mission through a local village. The goal was simple: show coalition strength, gather intelligence, and build relationships with civilians. The village elder watched their approach with wary eyes. He'd seen American forces come and go for years, making promises they couldn't keep. But when Emma removed her helmet to greet him respectfully, something changed. The elder stared at her scars, then spoke rapidly in Pashto to the interpreter. He wants to know if you were injured fighting, the interpreter explained. He says you have the marks of a warrior. Emma explained through the interpreter about her accident, about choosing to serve despite her injuries. The elder listened, then nodded with what looked like respect. He says his daughter was injured by Taliban explosives. She hides from people now, ashamed of her scars. He wants her to meet you. The girl was maybe 13, with burn scars covering half her face. She emerged reluctantly from her home, eyes downcast, expecting judgment or pity. Emma knelt to her level. Through the interpreter, she said, "You're still the same person you were before. The scars just show you survived something terrible. That makes you stronger, not weaker." The girl looked up, meeting Emma's eyes for the first time. Then, slowly, she smiled. Word spread through the village. By the time the patrol prepared to leave, women and children had gathered to see the scarred American Marine. Instead of fear or revulsion, Emma saw curiosity and connection. Back at the forward operating base, Captain Morrison called Emma into his office. The village elder sent a message, Morrison said. He wants coalition forces to help establish a school for girls in his village. He specifically requested that you be involved in the planning. Rodriguez, you just accomplished more in one patrol than some units manage in months. Emma's role began to evolve. She participated in combat operations, but increasingly found herself involved in civil affairs missions. Her unique appearance and ability to connect with Afghan women made her invaluable for certain operations. But Afghanistan was dangerous, and success didn't eliminate threats. The ambush came during a routine security patrol through a valley. They'd traversed dozens of times. The Taliban had studied their patterns, identified their weaknesses, and prepared a coordinated attack designed to inflict maximum casualties. The IED hit the lead vehicle with devastating force. The explosion flipped the armored truck completely over, the blast wave rolling across the valley like thunder. Contact front, contact left. Sergeant Kowalski's voice cut through the chaos. Emma grabbed her rifle and exited the vehicle, immediately assessing the situation. The lead truck was disabled, possibly with wounded Marines inside. Enemy fire was coming from 3 positions, creating a devastating crossfire. Lance Corporal Briggs, the same Marine who doubted her capabilities, was in the lead vehicle. Without hesitation, Emma sprinted toward the disabled truck. Rounds snapped past her head, kicking up dirt at her feet. She reached the overturned vehicle and found Briggs trapped beneath twisted metal, bleeding from a leg wound. "I can't move," Briggs gasped. "Go help the others." "Shut up," Emma said, not unkindly. She began pulling at the wreckage, her scarred arm screaming in protest. Another Marine, Corporal Jackson, reached her position. Together, they freed Briggs and dragged him to cover, while the rest of the platoon laid down suppressing fire. The firefight lasted 20 minutes. When Apache helicopters arrived overhead, the Taliban fighters melted back into the mountains like ghosts. 3 Marines were wounded. None were killed. During the casualty evacuation, Briggs grabbed Emma's arm. Blood loss had made him pale, but his voice was clear. "I was wrong about you. Completely wrong. You saved my life. You'd have done the same for me," Emma said. "Maybe, but I wouldn't have been fast enough. You didn't hesitate." The after-action report praised Emma's actions under fire. Captain Morrison recommended her for a Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal with Combat V device. But the real change was in how her fellow Marines saw her. The whispers and doubts had been replaced by respect earned through shared danger. Sergeant Kowalski pulled her aside after the award ceremony. "Rodriguez, I'm going to be straight with you. When you joined this platoon, I had concerns. Not about your abilities, but about whether the unit would accept you. You've proven that leadership isn't about what you look like. It's about what you do when things fall apart." The deployment continued. Emma participated in dozens of operations, each one adding to her reputation as a solid, dependable Marine. The scars that had once defined her in the eyes of others became just another part of who she was. Near the end of their rotation, the platoon received word that they'd be hosting a VIP visitor, Lieutenant General Patricia Hayes, one of the highest-ranking women in the Marine Corps. General Hayes wanted to meet with female Marines serving in combat roles to assess the integration program's effectiveness. Emma found herself sitting across from a 3-star general in a plywood office that smelled of dust and diesel fuel. "Tell me honestly, Corporal Rodriguez," General Hayes said. "How has your experience been? I don't want the official version. I want the truth." Emma considered her answer carefully. "It's been hard, ma'am, but everything worth doing is hard. Some Marines accepted me immediately. Others needed to see me perform. A few probably still have doubts, but that's human nature, not a flaw in the system. Your scars," General Hayes said gently. "How have they affected your service?" "Initially, they were a barrier. Marines didn't know how to react. But in Afghanistan, they've actually been an asset. Local women see someone who's been through trauma and kept going. It builds trust in ways a perfect appearance never could." General Hayes nodded thoughtfully. "That's an insight that won't make it into any official report, but it's valuable. You've turned adversity into advantage." The general's visit concluded with an all-hands formation. She addressed the entire forward operating base, but Emma felt like some of the words were directed specifically at her. "The Marines succeed not because we're all the same, but because we hold ourselves to the same standards," General Hayes said. "Every Marine here has proven they belong, not through politics or quotas, but through performance under fire. That's the only metric that matters." Emma's deployment ended 3 weeks later. The flight home was bittersweet. She'd missed the clarity of purpose, the absolute certainty about what mattered and what didn't. The first night back in the United States, Emma stood in front of a mirror in her barracks room, really looking at herself for the first time in months. The scars were still there, permanent reminders of the worst day of her life, but she saw them differently now. They weren't marks of shame. They were evidence of survival, proof that she'd faced destruction and refused to surrender. Her phone buzzed with a text from Briggs. "Beer at the M Club? The guys want to hear your stories." Emma smiled. The guys, not the platoon tolerating her presence, not the token female Marine, just one of the guys, accepted for exactly what she'd proven herself to be. She typed back, "On my way." 6 months later, Emma received orders for her next assignment, Marine Combat Instructor School. She'd be training the next generation of Marines, teaching them not just tactics and techniques, but something more important. She'd teach them that strength came in forms they might not recognize, that judging people by appearance was a failure of imagination, that the Marine next to you might look different, but if they could do the job, nothing else mattered. On her first day as an instructor, Emma stood in front of a classroom full of young Marines. aware that some were staring at her scars, wondering what kind of instructor they'd been assigned. "My name is Sergeant Rodriguez," she began. "Some of you are looking at my face and making assumptions. That's natural. But here's what I want you to remember during this course. Appearances are the least reliable indicator of what someone is capable of. You judge Marines by their performance, nothing else. That goes for the Marine next to you, and it goes for me." She paused, making eye contact around the room. "Now, who's ready to learn?" Every hand went up. Emma smiled. This was exactly where she belonged. Years later, after multiple deployments and promotions, Gunnery Sergeant Emma Rodriguez would find herself briefing new female Marine recruits about the Combat Integration Program. They'd ask about the challenges, the resistance, the moments when she almost quit. She'd tell them the truth. It was hard. It still was. But nothing worthwhile came easy. Then she'd tell them about the village elder's daughter, about Lance Corporal Briggs bleeding in the dirt, about the moment she realized her scars weren't defining her anymore. "You're going to face doubt," she'd tell them, "from others and from yourself. You're going to have moments when you question whether you belong. But here's what I learned. You don't wait for permission to be excellent. You don't wait for acceptance. You prove yourself through action, and eventually, the doubt falls away." One young recruit would raise her hand. "Gunny, do you ever regret it? The scars, I mean. Do you wish things had been different?" Emma would consider the question seriously. She'd think about the pain, the surgeries, the relationships lost, the stares from strangers that still happen sometimes. "No," she'd finally say, "because those scars led me here. They made me prove I was stronger than I thought possible. They taught me what really matters. Would I have chosen them? No. But I wouldn't trade what they taught me for anything." The young Marines would nod, not fully understanding yet. But someday, when they faced their own challenges and doubts, they'd remember Gunnery Sergeant Rodriguez and her scars. They'd remember that strength wasn't about being perfect. It was about being unbreakable. And they'd push forward, just like she had, proving that. Marines came in all forms but shared one unshakable quality. They never quit. Emma's story wasn't about overcoming her scars. It was about discovering they'd been building her strength all along. The girl from Texas who'd sat in a parking lot, terrified to walk into a recruitment office, had become exactly what she'd dreamed of, a Marine who led by example, who proved that appearance meant nothing compared to character. Her scars weren't her story. They were just the beginning.